This video we're going to be looking at decimals and place value, so more importantly the place value of certain numbers within the decimal system. Now the three learning goals that we're going to focus on here is that it's important that you know first that the decimal point is used to separate the whole number from the part. Okay, so we'll look at that. We'll go through each of these learning goals one by one, so it'll help us from there. But we need to make sure, check back at the end that we can do these. And the second thing is that you can understand that decimals can be represented as fractions as well, and we'll look at that. And also how to arrange decimals in ascending order, which means smallest to largest. So let's first focus here on learning goal 1, which is understanding the point of the decimal point. Now here we have an example of a number, and you'll see that we have 258. We have a point in the middle, which is the decimal point, and then the numbers corresponding from there on to the right. Now what the decimal point does is that it separates a whole number from a part of the number. So in this case here we have our decimal point. It sits there in the middle there, or not necessarily the middle, it just sits there. Every number to the left is a whole number. So that is 258, a whole number. Every number to the right of the decimal point is less than a whole. So this is part of a whole, and these are what we call our decimal points, or our decimal places. Now it's important that you understand here also that the number, so this number here, it has 9 individual digits, so you'll count all these numbers here. There are 9 of them. They're digits, but everything to the right of the decimal place, they're decimal places. So this number here has the 9 individual digits, and then to the right of that decimal place we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 decimal places. So when we have questions, obviously how many round to the nearest decimal place, or how many decimal places, etc., make sure you understand the difference to that. So the decimal point, key learning goal here is that it separates the whole number from parts of a whole. Now we want to get into the actual place value, or the value of these numbers here. Now this is a handy thing to have. I recommend you write this down into your books. I've put this number into a place value chart, and what it does is it separates and gives us the value of each number. Now, as we've known before, you should know these ones here going from the left of the decimal place. These are whole units, so ones, tens, hundreds. And what the decimal point sort of acts as is like a mirror. So if we use this as a mirror, we have tens, hundreds, including the ones. If we separate these, it goes on sort of in the opposite direction, but all you then need to do is add the THS to the end. Okay, so for example, we got the ones in the decimal, they stay the same, but the first digit to the right of the decimal place is the tenths unit. Okay, and you'll see tens here, then it's the tenths when it comes to the decimal place. Hundreds, hundredths, thousand, thousandths. So that's how you pronounce those words. That's how the value of them, and they can be represented in different forms. So here we have the written form. Okay, that's how you write these values. Underneath here you have the fractional form. So they're all represented as fractions. Okay, so when we say the word decimal, you know, DEC means 10, like decade, decathlon, they all go up in tens. So the tenths column represented as that is 1 over 10, tenths, hundredths, 1 over 100, thousandths, 1 over 1,000. That's the fractional form of that. And that can also, as they represented in decimal point form, as we'll see here, which goes on again, going on from the tenths, hundredths, thousands, etc. So make sure you have that chart down, because you're going to need to know the written form, the fractional form, and the decimal form from those ones. So when you have a question, what is the value of for a number in this, you can easily calculate it from there. Now, third learning goal here is how do we arrange, also knowing the value of these, how do we arrange these numbers in order, ascending order, meaning smallest to largest. Now the trick here is that every number to the left, okay, so I'm going to highlight this and make sure you write this down. Every number to the left is higher than to the right. So as we've done before, you know, for example, 258 is higher than 58, okay, because every number to the left, that's what happens in whole numbers. But just because there's more numbers in a decimal place doesn't necessarily mean that it's a bigger number. So you always focus from left to right. I'm going to give you an example down here. So if you work from left to right, you'll be able to work out the place value here. So let's start at the furthest number. So they each have 3 numbers in front of the decimal place. So that means they are the same, 258 wholes. Now let's work from left to right there. So even though this number has a big number, if we start working from left to right, so we go from left, the first number after the decimal place, this value is 2. this value here is 3. Now 3 is obviously bigger than 2, so this number here is bigger than this number. So even though it has 2, 3, 7, even though that's a big number, you always work from left to right. So we're going to just do some quick examples now, just so we can get an idea before you go on and do it yourself. And we'll just do these 3 quick questions based on the learning goals. Question 1, what is the value of 7 in this number? Okay, so the value of 7, I've put it in its place value chart. I can look up, I can see that is 7. The value of 7 is thousandths. Now I'm going to write that in fractional form. So I'm going to write the value of 7 is 7 over 1,000ths. Okay, pretty simple. Make sure you have that place value chart recorded down. The next one is, can you express this number as a decimal? Okay, so because I've already got it here, I've got, instead of the 1, it is a 7. So it is 0. So thousandths, so we have tenths column, hundredths column, thousandths column. So that's how we express that as a decimal. And finally, can you arrange these following numbers in ascending order? So again, the rule is work from left to right, so smallest to largest. So let's get the smallest. So they all start with the whole number first. Let's start with our small whole numbers. So I'm going to remove these two first in line because they're 2, so they're obviously smaller than those ones. And then I'm going to need to arrange these ones in this side. So again, working from left to right, so we've done the 2. Now we have the next number of 7 and 3. 3 is smaller than 7, so I can switch these 2 around. So now I have my smallest number, and then we move on to the next whole number. So we've got a 3, 7 and 7. 3 is obviously smaller than both of those numbers. And now we have 2 7s, so we're going to need to again work from left to right. 7 and 7, 2 and 3. 2 is smaller, that will go there, and that will go there. So when you're doing the ascending order, always work from left to right, keep going through bit by bit, and you'll be able to get your answers from there. Thanks guys.